rugby league, make them illegal, then you're going to have a lot of litigation. And the third thing is to go on to last week's game. And I believe that Eddie Ward cost Brisbane the game. The 7-tackle try to Penrith. Brisbane had a certain try pulled back. When Brisbane stole the ball, the player was not held. He was upright and moving. And this rubbish by referees that's saying that they have called held, which no one hears. Perhaps they should use the whistle to denote being held. The example when Alexander played on. There was head-high tackles by Penrith, swinging arms, were not pulled up by Ward, but he penalised Brisbane in similar circumstances.
Well,
I think if you take the tries that Brisbane would have scored, had them on, and the illegal try that was scored by Penrith, you'd get them back to almost the same score.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful about looking at a game through maroon and gold eyes, though. David Wright, what do you think?
Well, just on each of those points, Gerry, I don't think there's any chance we're going to get to a line-out situation. Admittedly, scrums are pretty well foregone conclusions, but we did see the benefit of the way scrums and defensive plays are run these days, with the ability of Penrith to exploit Brisbane's defensive deficiencies around the base of the scrum when Izzard scored. So there is still a benefit in terms of a platform to attack from, but I do agree very much that the Rugby League, as with the Rugby Union, and I must admit they are doing it, must address and try and come up with the very safest scrum possible so we don't have any accidents, or we limit the accidents. As far as drugs go, prescribed by the doctor, providing those declarations are made in advance of any drug test being done. In other words, the player says, okay, I've been in the hands of a doctor and this is what he has prescribed, or they can then go back to that doctor and find out, then I don't think that player has got any problems at all. But it is very important, and I know there is an awareness campaign, at least run by the Broncos, that says that all players must be very aware that whatever they're taking must be declared so that they can't be caught out. On the Ward situation, sure, the 7-tackle try had a big impact on the match, although I think Brisbane were in huge trouble even up at half-time when they'd let in 3 tries at that stage. But there again, I don't believe on the other issues. I think overall Eddie Ward had a pretty good game. I think Steve Renouf was offside, even though the replay does not show it exactly. Renouf is just out of camera range. For mine, even as he bobs in, I think he might have been marginally offside. That's just a referee's decision, as is the situation with held. The referees do call held for the safety of the player more than anything, and also to speed up the game. We don't want a lot of wrestling going on in tackles, so it's up to the referee when he thinks the tackle's been affected to call held. If a player then steals the ball, obviously he's going to be penalised. So I really think the referees have got about right. If they use the whistle, I think you're going to get players stopping. A whistle means a total stoppage in play when a referee is about to award a penalty. I don't think there's any possibility that he could use that whistle just to call a tackle.
Our phone number's 2230 or if you're out of town, 008 777 777. Good morning to Eric.
Good morning, panel. I just wanted to talk quickly about something I mentioned the other week, about the ridiculous situation in Sydney where they're going to play to a half-empty stadium where they had a packed house in Brisbane here. I can understand Sydney getting the preliminary final and the grand final, but surely with Brisbane in the semi-final, some of these semi-finals, they could have put the game up here. Now, the other thing I wanted to speak about was I think the Broncos want to think very seriously about leaving Lang Park, because one thing Lang Park has is atmosphere. Now, I do not think QE2 will ever have that atmosphere. I think it could happen at the exhibition ground. And David, you might remember, it's only several years ago that they were talking about pulling down the old Frank Burke stand and putting up another stand. Well, what's wrong with them putting up a 2-tiered stand that could hold 15 to 20,000 there in place of the old Frank Burke stand? And when they do it, put it in the shape of a boomerang so the people on each end of the stand can get a decent view of the game. Not like these straight stands where if you get a seat in the grand final there, you got to just watch play at one end of the ground. They were talking about putting a rail station at Lang Park there, a temporary rail station, and a walkway across Milton Road to the ground. Did you know whatever happened to that?
No, I'm not privy to it, Eric, although I do know obviously the Brisbane City Council are carrying on a lot of works there in Hale Street, which will definitely improve traffic flow in and around Lang Park, which has been a problem in the past. You're dead right, there is provision for railway facilities there, and I think if they ever did decide to upgrade Lang Park, I've got no doubt that one of the provisos would be to look at ready access to the railway station. I'm with you. I think rugby league should stay at Lang Park. Obviously, there's a lot of politics. A lot of teams don't endorse that. It's actually quite a safe position. If you can get your back nice and straight and parallel, then you're in a very strong position and it's very difficult to be injured. The only problem I've got with that is in that parallel position, a collapse by the opposition does tend to fold everyone in, and I think that's a bit scary from my point of view. So whilst it's initially good if everything stands up straight, or if the scrum doesn't collapse, it concerns me a bit that in a collapse situation, in that very strong pushing position with backs parallel to the ground, it has the potential for injury.
All right. Yeah, just one other thing while I've got you. The other day when they kicked downfield and Dowling touched the ball and put them all back on side, all those players were downtown, as they say. I think a change of the rule needs to be applied there, whereby when a player touches the ball, only those players upfield from the person who touches the ball should be onside. Those that are past between the men touching the ball and the try line should be ruled offside and have to go back in front of the man who touches the ball, so to speak.
Yeah, it might be a bit difficult for the referee to interpret that with players at that stage scattered all over the field. Certainly there's two interpretations that could have been got from that. Were the Penrith players initially back 5 metres in attack, and Brisbane have been penalised plenty of times for that in the past. And secondly, even though Dowling touched it, there should be no player within 5 metres of Dowling at the time of that touch. And so there's a few things the referee had to look for. I think he would find it difficult if he had to adjudicate on whether or not players were actually in front of Dowling at the time that he touched, and therefore they're the only ones onside.
Sports Extra Rugby League Talkback, 2230 our number in Brisbane, or if you're out of town, 008 777. Good morning to Scott.
Hello. Hello?
Yes, Scott.
I was wondering if you could tell me who's your favourite for the Brisbane Winfield Cup.
Well, Valleys would have to be favourites, wouldn't they, David?
Well, certainly they've been the form side of the competition. I understand Eastern Suburbs also been playing extremely well. Redcliffe are right up there. Norths now have snuck in at the expense of Brothers, but I would think in the form that Valleys have been in, Valleys would have to be favoured.
And a Valleys Redcliffe grand final more than likely?
Well, it shapes
or
up that
East.
way. I wouldn't underestimate Eastern Suburbs, nor the enthusiasm that can be drummed up by Tommy Radonicus down at Norths.
All right. Well, that by the way, that preliminary semi-final on tomorrow between Easts and Norths, and it should be a beauty. Hello to Trevor.
G'day.
Yes, Trevor.
Adults $4, children $2.